The Wolftrap grid hummed with malevolent energy, its electromagnetic tendrils weaving through the abandoned sector of Station Helios 9 like invisible serpents. Most species in the galactic community had the good sense to avoid such devices. The Kryn had engineered them specifically to capture apex predators from Death Worlds, creatures too dangerous, too unpredictable to be allowed free movement through civilized space. Humans, the Kryn had learned too late, did not consider themselves bound by such reasonable precautions. Arya Vance moved through the darkened corridor with deliberate steps, her scanner painting thermal signatures across her visor's display. 3 small forms hung suspended in the grid's energy field, their bodies contorted at angles that made her jaw clench. Rick, Tala, and Myrn the Veleron cubs had been missing for 6 hours. 6 hours of dangling upside down in a trap designed to induce maximum disorientation and pain. The Kryn security officer who'd activated the grid had called it a necessary containment measure. He'd said it with the casual certainty of someone who'd never questioned whether necessity and cruelty might sometimes wear the same face. Arya had broken his mandible in 3 places before her commanding officer pulled her away. Now she stood before the grid's control nexus, studying the alien script that scrolled across its surface. The Kryn used quantum-locked encryption, supposedly unbreakable, even by the vaunted human cyber specialists who'd cracked half the galaxy's security protocols within a decade of first contact. She pulled out her multi-tool and smiled. The thing about being human was that unbreakable had always been less a statement of fact and more a challenge to be overcome. While other species had evolved in stable environments with predictable rules, humans had clawed their way up from a world that actively tried to kill them. They'd learned early that every problem had a solution, and if the solution didn't exist yet, you invented one, or you improvised. Arya didn't bother with the encryption. Instead, she identified the grid's power coupling, a physical component the Kryn had assumed was too well protected to matter, and wedged her multi-tool into the seam. The device sparked, and she twisted hard. The coupling shattered. Alarms shrieked through the corridor as the grid's energy field flickered. The 3 cubs dropped, and Arya was already moving. Her enhanced reflexes, a gift of Earth's relentless gravity and evolutionary pressure, allowing her to catch Rick before he hit the deck. Tala and Myrn landed in the magnetic cushion she'd deployed a half-second earlier, their small bodies bouncing once before settling. "Easy," Arya murmured, gathering the disoriented cubs. Rick's large eyes blinked at her, still glassy from hours of inverted suspension. His species had fur like silver smoke and faces that reminded her of Earth's foxes, though their intelligence matched or exceeded most sapient races. At 3 months old, these cubs were already speaking in simple sentences, or they had been, before the trauma. Tala whimpered, and Arya's expression hardened. She activated her comm. "Vance to command. I have the cubs." Proceeding to medical bay. "Vance, you were ordered to stand down." The voice belonged to Commander Thex, a Kryn who still believed humans could be controlled through military hierarchy. "With respect, sir, I don't take orders that violate the Sapient Rights Convention." Arya cut the connection and gathered Myrn into her arms alongside his siblings. The cubs weighed almost nothing. Valara was a low-gravity world, but she moved with care, conscious of their fragile bones. Behind her, the Wolftrap grid's alarms reached a crescendo. She'd probably caused 10,000 credits in damage. The Kryn would demand restitution. There would be hearings, penalties, possibly even court-martial proceedings. She didn't care. The corridor ahead branched into 3 passages. Standard protocol would have her take the main route, well-lit, monitored, safe. But Arya had reviewed the station schematics during her sleepless night, mapping every maintenance shaft and service tunnel. She ducked into a narrow accessway. The cubs pressed close to her chest. "Almost there," she whispered. Rick's small hand, 3 fingers, each tipped with a retractable claw, gripped her uniform. The medical bay was 2 levels down. Arya took the emergency ladder, descending one-handed while her mag boots kept her stable. Most species would have needed both hands, would have had to make multiple trips. But humans had evolved carrying their young while fleeing from predators, and that ancient legacy lived on in tendons and muscle memory. She emerged in the medical bay to find Dr. Senna already waiting. The Veleran physician's ears were flat against her skull, a sign of barely contained rage. 6 hours, she hissed. They hung my people's children for 6 hours. Not anymore, Arya said, gently transferring the cubs to the examination table. Senna's assistants immediately began running scanners, checking for neural damage, testing reflexes. Rick spoke his first words since the rescue, his voice small and frightened. Why they hurt us? The question hung in the air. Arya knelt beside the examination table, meeting the cubs' eyes. Because they were scared, she said, and sometimes, when people are scared of what they don't understand, they do terrible things. You not scared? Tala asked. Arya smiled. Oh, I'm scared of lots of things. But I learned a long time ago that being scared doesn't mean you get to hurt someone. It means you find your courage, and you do what's right. It was a very human philosophy, born from a species that had faced down saber-toothed cats with sharpened sticks, that had looked at the stars and decided to visit them despite having no idea what waited in the dark. Fear was useful, it kept you alert, kept you sharp, but it never got to be the master. Dr. Senna worked quickly, her skilled hands checking each cub. No permanent damage, she finally announced, though her voice carried an edge of fury barely held in check. They'll need therapy. Trauma counseling. They'll get it, Arya promised. The medical bay doors hissed open. Commander Thex entered, his chitinous features set in what Arya had learned to recognize as disapproval. Captain Vance. You are confined to quarters pending. She saved my children, Dr. Senna interrupted, her voice cold as vacuum. Touch her. And the Velaran Council will hear of it. The standoff lasted 3 heartbeats. Then Thex's mandibles clicked in resignation. The Kryn Trade Consortium is already filing complaints. Let them, Arya said. I'll be here, making sure these cubs heal. Later, after the bureaucrats had argued and the politicians had postured, the story would spread. It would reach human colonies and alien worlds alike, carried by the same networks that transmitted stock prices and cultural exchanges. They would speak of the human who'd broken the unbreakable grid, who'd defied authority and physics and common sense to save 3 children who weren't even her own species. And across the galaxy, other humans would hear it and nod, unsurprised. Because that was what they did. That was what they'd always done. When the powerful preyed on the helpless, humans remembered their own brutal evolution and made a choice. Not to be the predator, but to be the shield. Arya Vance stayed with the cubs through the night, her hand resting gently on Rick's small head as he finally slept, safe and right side up for the first time in hours. Outside, the stars turned in their eternal dance, indifferent to the dramas of the beings who sailed between them. But the beings themselves they remembered. They always would.